I'm Aoife Devitt and welcome to 50 Faces TV. Today we're delighted to be joined by a previous guest on the podcast, Jenny Segal, who has now written her fourth book entitled On Motivation, Women and Workplace Culture. We're delighted to welcome her here to this TV slot to talk about her motivations for writing the book and some of the major themes in it. Welcome, Jenny. Thanks for joining us here.
Thanks very much, Ethan. Great to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit about what it was that motivated you to write this book, specifically about women in the workplace?
There was a lot of noise in the press about women at work, everything from the menopause to gender pay gap. And I don't know if it was just the echo chamber that I'm living in, but I was seeing it everywhere I looked. And at the same time, I happened to be listening to a podcast about J.K. Rowling, called The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, and there was so much blurring and toxicity around gender. But I just put the two together and I started to think, is it still a problem? Is gender still a problem in the workplace? So I wanted to have my own views, but I was very keen to canvass the views of other people. So I did what I did with the other three books, which is I put something on LinkedIn to ask for volunteers for me to interview to get their thoughts. And it didn't quite go viral, but it had a huge number of impressions. It was close to 20,000 impressions in quite a short space of time. And I had 100 people volunteer, which is much more than the other books. And of those 177 people actually converted from saying they were interested to signing up for interviews, which is quite a high hit rate. So I certainly seemed to touch a nerve, and it certainly seemed to be an issue which was resonating with the people in my network. And it wasn't just women, I should say, that I invited to take part. I wanted to get men's views as well, because I think that inclusivity is really important. So I ended up with 67 women and 10 men taking part in my survey.
And I should note that you're now in the middle of a publicity drive for the book. So that explains that we're catching you here on the fly and explains a little bit about the backdrop of this video. So thank you for taking the time. But let's go into some of the themes. And I did see that post and the huge amount of attention that it garnered and the fact that it went viral. So starting with the first theme you described, the Me Too movement, can you tell us what some of the qualitative discussions you had told you about how real of an issue this is today?
Yeah, so I think in common with other data that I've seen, about 44% of the people, it was 44% of the people that I spoke to, raised sexual harassment as an issue. And I think what's important to note is that I didn't have a list of questions to go through with people. I didn't guide their thoughts in any way. I gave them white space to say, what are the issues that affect you? And 44% of people, it was front of mind. And that's not to say that the remaining people it wasn't an issue for, it's just that they had other things that they wanted to talk about more at the time that we had. And those sexual harassment issues ranged from what I would call absolutely blatant harassment, things like one individual talking about her boss taking Viagra in front of her when they were out in a hotel on a business trip, to another individual whose boss pulled her clothes off in the street, and the treatment that this latter person received at work as a result of that, where she was told really she wasn't happy with the way the thing was being investigated. She was likely to take time off work if she was uncomfortable, rather than the person who was the harasser. So those kind of blatant harassment issues. But actually there's a lot more, which I'm comforted by, what I'd call unconscious harassment, where it's misplaced flirtation or just clumsy action. And the reason I'm comforted by that is because I think that is solvable much more easily than the blatant harassment. It's solvable by people being aware of it. And part of solving subconscious bias is people actually thinking, yeah, actually that is wrong, that's a problem. So I felt quite reassured by that aspect, actually.
Well, thank you for bringing this issue to the front and center. It clearly continues to be an issue for all of us in the workplace. Let's talk now about the motherhood penalty. Can you describe what that is?
Yeah, the motherhood penalty is alive and well. And we're all aware of what it is, that women, there's almost like the opposite of a halo effect. There's a horn effect that surrounds women. It affects all women by virtue of the fact that some women have babies. And that there is this assumption that younger women are going to go off and have babies, and that when they come back, if they come back, they're going to be less committed somehow to their job than their male peers. And also that other women, even if they're not going to go off and have babies, that they, as I said, they're somehow infected by this torn effect assumption. And I had one, for example, quote that comes to mind is that she says that when you have a baby, you have to write off 5 years of your career. And this is I think it's a well-documented theme. And again, I think the solution for this is relatively, well, it's simple, but it's not easy. It stems from equality. And that equality has to come as a society from the home. Unless men and women have equal roles in the domestic duties at home, how on earth can that be expected to be translated into the workplace? Because there is, again, a subconscious expectation that the women are going to be the ones who have to go off and do the school runs and organise all the home stuff as well, because there is a lack of equality. And I think the other piece of the jigsaw is that we need to have equal parental leave for men and women. And I don't mean a lip service of men being given 10 days to go off. I mean men having 6 months paid paternity leave, the same as women do. And only then will we be gender agnostic for businesses, or businesses be indifferent as to whether they're employing a 28-year-old man who's just got married to a 28-year-old woman who's just got married. The risk is that when you see these kind of things, I was talking to someone from the London Business School, and he said that where they've instigated these policies where it's actually compulsory for men to take paternity leave, they found it hasn't been as detrimental for men's careers as women. Sadly, because when the men have taken their paternity leave, they've been working rather than looking after the kids, which goes back to the first point that we need to have equality domestically as a society.
That's a fascinating insight on that score in terms of the broader things that need to change. The last theme we'll discuss is that of the glass cliff and the concept of being guilty until proven innocent. I know you did mention that in your LinkedIn post. Can you tell us a little bit about whether women are set up to fail in that way?
The phrase that I'm using, as you say, is guilty until proven innocent. I think men are innocent until proven guilty, by which I mean that we as a society, this isn't a question of men doing it to women do it to other women as well. We assume as a society that men know what they're doing until someone proves that that's not the case. But conversely, we assume that women don't know what they're doing until they demonstrate their competence. So they have this much higher bar to prove themselves. And this reflects itself in many ways in the workplace. This is why we get the mansplaining from, where we get the authority gap, which is the term that Marianne Segal's put forward in a fantastic book, the authority gap. And so we're left with this situation where we've got women who have to be better than men to get to the same place as them, to justify their seat at the table. And then at the same time, they've got the issues with childcare at home and the motherhood penalty and the sexual harassment, and they're not paid the same as well. And so there's this conflation of issues which affect women, all three of them together, meaning I think that it's certainly still very much the case that there is an issue that's alive and well for women in the workplace. Again, I take comfort really from the guilty until proven innocent theme, because, like the hashtag #MeToo, a lot of it is down to subconscious bias that we see it everywhere. Actually, once you open your eyes to it, again, the fantastic book Invisible Women, which I've only just come to. There's so much in society which is by men for men, and I see it now everywhere in the workplace. I do a lot of public speaking now. I'm really consciously, whereas we know it's been much publicised, women's clothes don't have pockets. Supposedly because women are chattels, so historically chattels don't have possessions, so they don't really have pockets. It becomes a real issue when you're a public speaker and you have a microphone pack, for example, and you've got nowhere to clip it. I have to wear different clothes. I have to take a belt. I never wear a belt. So if I've got something to clip the microphone pack to. There's all sorts of things that are just there in the office, which are designed by men for men, not through any spite or ill will, just because that's the way it's always been. And once you open your eyes, then it's really quite obvious. And I think this is what we need to do for the guilty until proven innocent. We need to be aware of our biases.
Well, some of this makes for some very sober listening. Was there any good news in the book that you garnered from these extensive interviews?
I think there are lots of reasons to be cheerful, actually. There's a huge power in networking. Women form incredibly strong bonds with people. And that works in there's lots of talk about queen bee syndrome, and again there's a negative connotation for women. There's no equal term for king bee syndrome. there's no denigration for men who act in an authoritative way. And there is this kind of dissonance argument where women who display leadership qualities, we don't like them because it somehow clashes with our traditional stereotypical view of how women are supposed to behave. But actually, many, many, many more women talked about the positive impact that other women have had on their careers rather than this queen bee aspect. And the power of support and allyship is a really important thing. And there's a lot of it around. We see a lot about allyship, it's about male allyship. And female allyship is incredibly powerful as well. And when we ignite, I think it's going to be a very, very positive thing to really make things better for women in the workplace.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you for your passion, for your commitment to furthering the work of culture in the workplace, for examining what it is to be motivated and how that can make all of us have more fulfilling careers. Thank you for coming here and sharing your insights with us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks very much, Ethan.
I'm Ethan Devitt. Thank you for watching 50 Faces TV.